Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we now move to our final keynote of the day, strengthening relations between Africa and the Gulf, a Nigerian perspective. Our speaker is a leading figure in Nigeria's energy and industrial landscape. He is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Century Group with more than 20 years of experience across the Nigerian economy and the full oil and gas value chain. Century Group is the first indigenous oil and gas company to wholly own 2 floating production storage and offloading vessels in sub-Saharan Africa. He has been recognized internationally for his leadership and his philanthropic work. Please join me in welcoming on stage Mr. Ken Etete. Hello and welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by acknowledging I had the privilege of addressing a similar forum when Swazel, Africa started in the beautiful city of Paris. Special thanks to Pascal. That was 10 years ago. Then there was no preparation. I was not informed. I showed up because I was one of the nominees at the time. And Pascal had just springly surprised me I should address the forum. And I did. I probably spent 5 minutes to do that. Then we were discussing matters that we are discussing today, 10 years after. At the time, I believe Pascal was, and Swazel, was looking for a strong ties. And the focus was how private young entrepreneurs, leaders from the continent of Africa was going to collaborate with Europe. Of course, France was leading the charge. And it was quite promising. And I have to say big thanks to Pascal for driving that vision and kept that effort going. And 10 years after, we are strong and we are building new frontiers of that partnership. Now, as I listen to the ending part of this great panel and the other panels that followed, unfortunately, I didn't get here early enough to participate in the previous one. But I can imagine, listening to what I've just heard, my keynote address is almost a summary of some of the brilliant speakers that we've had earlier on, and the strong institutions. But because I've had the privilege of this topic before, I've been made to put my points, and I will try to read it out for you within a short period so that I'm not going to keep you here any much longer. Distinguished leaders, partners, and friends, we meet today at a very defining moment, as you can hear from the panelists, the concerns, and all that. Energy systems are shifting, global influence is shifting, centers of powers are shifting. And Africa and the Gulf stand not at the margins of this shift, but at the heart of them. For decades, as we've all heard from the panelists, our relationships has run on parallel tracks. It's very obvious we're connected by geography, by OPEC, by our history, by faith, yet fully aligned in purpose. But today, Those tracks are converging. They must converge because the future no longer belongs to regions that stand apart. It belongs to regions that stand together. And so I ask the question that frames our era. What happens when the world's youngest continent meets the world's most future-focused region? What happens when Africa, rising, restless, ready, meets the Gulf, strategic, visionary, ambitious? What happens when Africa's skills meet Gulf capability? When Africa energy meets Gulf investments? When Africa youth meet Gulf ambition? When those forces meet, the result is not charity, it is not dependence, it is possibility. Possibility on a scale that can reshape the world. Africa is entering demographic prime. 1 billion new citizens will join our continent in the next quarter century. These young people are not a burden, they are a blessing. The world's largest emerging workforce, market and innovation pool. I've had some brilliant discussion with tech giants, brilliant minds out of Africa. Even in this forum, I was blown away by what the capabilities are. But people need power. Power needs infrastructure. Infrastructure needs investment. And investment needs trust. The Gulf brings what Africa needs. Capital, capability, credibility. Africa brings what the Gulf needs, which has been talked about by all the panelists. Markets, momentum, massive opportunity. This is not cooperation, it is convergence. A convergence of strategic futures. And at the center of that convergence stands my dear country, Nigeria. Nigeria is not simply a participant in Africa's rising. Nigeria is the anchor, even if I have to admit that, and there are data points to prove that. The gravitational point where Africa population, culture, markets, energy convergence, the gateway to West Africa, 420 million people. The launchpad into 1.3 billion persons, the Africa, the free trade area market, the home of Africa's largest gas reserve, and one of the most dynamic innovation ecosystems. For the Gulf, Nigeria is not just another investment destination. Nigeria is a force multiplier, a strategic lever, a partner whose success enables continental success. And the Gulf understands this. Investments are rising, partnerships are deepening, a new kind of relationship is emerging, not one that is transactional, but transformational. But to realize this vision, we must embrace a new model of partnership. A partnership grounded in value creation, shared risk, and shared destiny. First, value must be created at home, which is what we've been emphasizing. Africa cannot remain a warehouse exporting raw materials and crude oil. We must refine. As we all know today, Nigeria is home to one of the biggest oil refining capability in the world. Manufacture, process, and build industries on our own soil. This is how prosperity sticks. This is how dignity grows. This is how nations rise. Quite frankly, it is in the interest of the Gulf, and indeed all mature economies who may look at the African population sometimes as a liability. And this topic we spoke 10 years ago when we had our first meeting in Paris. And we are discussing them 10 years after. But it's changing. The second risk must be shared and de-risked together. When Gulf capital combines with indigenous African capability, we unlock projects that once seemed impossible. Pipelines, refineries, gas hubs, renewable grids, and modern logistics. Earlier on in the panel, we've talked about how investments can be protected. Let's have bilateral agreements that protect foreign investments, repatriation of investments and profits. They are real concern and can be developed. It's already happening, from cross-continental pipelines to hybrid energy projects, world-class ports rising along our coastlines. And third, this must be a partnership of equals. Africa population clearly demonstrates that. It is a big resource. A partnership that retains our youth, transfers technology, respects communities, projects, the environment, and delivers visible benefits to ordinary people. Not exploitation, not extraction, but equity. The only foundation strong enough to carry a century of cooperation. Now, let me speak a little bit about our company, for which given me the credibility to speak to you. And a lot of the things that we have talked about, we have demonstrated the possibility because we work on a very high-tech space, capital-intensive, high-risk. For over 20 years, we have worked at the sharp edge of Nigeria and indeed West Africa energy industry. Running FPSOs, if you're going to extract oil in the middle of the sea, the most reliable solution to do so is FPSOs, capital intensive, high risk. Skill sets are normally not domesticated, but we've done so. Gas processing, mystery operation. We've delivered them on uptime, 95, 99% uptime. And we've done this in an environment where the well-established organizations, not African origin, will consider too risky, because not a lot of time you will have counterparties that can de-risk or would be able to support that investment. So not a lot of international companies can operate in those tough environments. But we kept the assets running through storms, through election cycles, and through all the volatilities that we've all considered. It's a currency volatility. You would have the inflationary issues that many who work in the continent consider as a major problem. And in those years, we've learned something profound. Certainty is not discovered. Certainty is engineered. Certainty is built. And it is very obvious that's not a country in the world that all these things are laid out for you. But because there are certain perceptions that have been established, we are allowed to carry on these things. And it's not any different in Africa. We are an example. We have sufficient data to support that. That is the capability we bring to the partnership. An ability to create stability inside uncertainty, to deliver performance inside complexity, and to turn ambition into operating reality. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the world is watching Africa. Believe it. The world is watching the Gulf. The most important, the world is watching what we choose to build together. Because Africa and the Gulf are a rare window, a window to step forward as the twin engines of a new global energy order. Not North versus South, not East versus West, but Africa and the Gulf. Partners in power, partners in progress, partners in prosperity. And the partnership is not abstract. You can feel it. Africa offers the Gulf resilience, energy resilience, vast gas reserves that aligns with the Gulf ambition in LNG, hydrogen. Africa offers the Gulf food resilience. We've analyzed that. Agricultural belts that once linked the Gulf, logistics and investment can stabilize supply for generations. It's a fact. Africa offers Gulf market expansion. Cities doubling in population, sectors ready for investment, consumers rising in millions. Africa offers Gulf geopolitical reach as a growing diplomatic center of gravity. But above all, Africa offers Gulf the most prized advantage of all, the chance to lead, to shape the next global growth frontier, to co-design the corridors the world will one day rely on, to be first movers in a century-defining partnership. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is not a moment for caution. This is a moment for courage, for imagination, for co-creation. Because when the Gulf builds with Africa, not around it, not above it, but with it, something extraordinary happens. Stability is encouraged, engineered, returns become resilient, communities become partners, and the future becomes something we forge together. So, what's my call today? Let us build the bridge the next century will stand upon. Let us move from cooperation to co-creation. Let us build not tomorrow, but now. As I said, the world is watching the rise of new alliances. Let us be the alliance that proves that when ambition meets opportunity, when capability meets scale, when courage meets purpose, nations are transformed. We've talked about so many things. We need to put it together. We need to have an executable document. And this is what I bring to you this afternoon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
A moment of courage, a moment of innovation, a moment of co-creation. Thank you so much for these powerful notes. Kindly give him a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Etete, for this powerful perspective and for grounding Africa-Gulf cooperation in both ambition and realism.